What did your sibling do to reveal their monstrous nature? I always thought my older brother Kyle was just a tech geek. He spent hours in our garage working on what he called projects, building computers, fixing phones, that kind of stuff. Mom and Dad were proud of his skills. He was 19 and I was 12, so I mostly stayed out of his way. But something felt off about Kyle. He always seemed to know things he shouldn't. Like when I told my friend Jake a secret over the phone in my room, Kyle would make weird comments about it the next day. Or when my sister Emma practiced her dance routines alone, he'd tease her about specific moves she'd messed up. At first, I thought he was just good at guessing. Everything changed on a Tuesday after school. I was looking for my phone charger and decided to check the air vent above my bed, where I sometimes hid stuff. That's when I felt something that didn't belong. A tiny black camera, no bigger than a quarter, stuck to the inside of the vent with electrical tape. My hands were shaking as I pulled it out. There were thin wires running from it that disappeared deeper into the ductwork. I followed the wires outside to where they led straight into Kyle's garage workshop. That night, I waited until Kyle went to his friend's house. I snuck into the garage and nearly threw up at what I found. 3 computer monitors sat on his workbench, each showing live video feeds. One showed my room, another showed Emma's room, the third showed the hallway right outside our bathroom. I watched myself sleeping from the night before on one of the recorded files. Kyle had been watching me for who knows how long. The next morning, I cornered Kyle in the kitchen while Mom was getting ready for work. "I found your cameras," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Kyle didn't even look surprised. He just grinned and kept eating his cereal. "Don't be so dramatic, Liam. It's just for fun. I like knowing what's going on around here." "You're spying on us. That's sick." "It's not spying if it's my own house," he said, laughing. "Besides, what are you gonna do about it?" I told Mom and Dad that afternoon. Kyle spun some story about it being a security system project for his computer class. He showed them fake assignments he'd made up and said I was overreacting because I got in trouble for something and wanted to blame him. Mom and Dad believed him. They always believed Kyle, but Kyle got bolder after that. During family dinners, he'd bring up private things we'd said in our rooms. When Emma talked to her boyfriend on the phone about being nervous for her dance recital, Kyle would make jokes about her practicing her moves. When I cried after getting a bad grade on a test, Kyle would smirk and ask if I needed tissues. The worst part was how he used the information. If Emma didn't give him her dessert, he'd threaten to tell Mom and Dad about the boy she'd snuck out to see. If I didn't do his chores, he'd mention things I'd said about kids at school that would get me in trouble. It went on for months. I felt like I was going crazy, knowing someone was always watching but being unable to prove it to anyone who mattered. Then, one Saturday morning, I caught him in the bathroom hallway with his toolbox, reaching up toward the ceiling vent. He was installing another camera. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Nothing that concerns you," he said, not even stopping his work. "You're putting a camera in the bathroom. That's illegal." Kyle finished tightening something and turned to face me with that same sick grin. "Prove it. And even if you could, who's gonna believe you?" That's when I knew I had to tell Emma. She was 16 and home from her friend's house that day. I dragged her to my room and showed her the camera I'd left in place as evidence. Emma's face went white when she realized what it meant. "He's been watching us change clothes," she whispered. "Oh my God, Liam, for how long?" We didn't go to Mom and Dad this time. We went straight to our Aunt Sarah, Dad's sister, who lived across town. Emma called her crying and told her everything. Aunt Sarah believed us immediately. She came over that afternoon when Kyle was at work and made Mom and Dad sit down, while Emma and I showed them the cameras and the garage setup. The police came an hour later. They made Kyle remove every camera and confiscated all his recording equipment. Kyle tried to claim it was legal because it was his parents' house, but the officer explained that recording people in private spaces without consent was a crime, especially in bathrooms. Kyle moved out the next week to live with our uncle in another state. Mom and Dad were so ashamed they could barely look at us for months, but the damage was already done.